Have you ever felt completely drained, like your soul is running on empty, yet somehow the world keeps moving and everyone expects you to keep up? Maybe you've brushed it off as just stress or a rough week, but deep down you're wondering, am I burnt out? Or is this something more like depression? Today, we're diving into a question that confuses millions, yet has profound implications for your mental health. How do you tell the difference between depression and burnout? By the end of this story, you'll understand the subtle yet powerful distinctions, and more importantly, you'll learn how to protect your mind, reclaim your energy, and nurture yourself with science-backed strategies that really work. Imagine waking up on a Monday morning. The alarm rings, and your body feels heavy, your mind foggy. The tasks waiting for you feel insurmountable. Maybe you've had a long week at work, or you're juggling multiple responsibilities, and you chalk it up to burnout. Burnout often comes like a slow, creeping shadow after prolonged stress, work demands, caregiving, perfectionism, or relentless obligations. It's exhausting, sure, but there's a clarity buried somewhere underneath. You can often still feel excitement for things you love, even if they seem temporarily out of reach. Depression, however, doesn't just drain your energy. It clouds your mind, steals joy, and can make everything feel meaningless, even the things you once loved. Let's walk through the science, because understanding how your brain responds to stress and mood changes isn't just enlightening, it's empowering. Burnout triggers the body's stress response over time. Your cortisol levels spike, your energy dips, your motivation wanes. Sleep becomes fragmented, and focus becomes a mountain to climb. Depression, on the other hand, isn't just about stress. It's a complex neurological and biochemical shift. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine can become imbalanced. Your brain's reward system falters, leaving you numb to pleasure, anxious, or hopeless. And this is why burnout and depression can feel similar. They share overlapping symptoms: fatigue, irritability, difficulty concentrating, but the origin, intensity, and long-term effects differ. Think of burnout as a fire that slowly consumes your energy. It's exhausting, yes, but if you step back, rest, and tend the flames, you can reignite your motivation. Depression is more like being trapped under a heavy, persistent fog, where even stepping outside into sunlight doesn't lift the weight. One key difference lies in your sense of self. In burnout, you might still believe in your abilities and your purpose, even if your confidence is temporarily shaken. In depression, that self-belief often erodes, replaced by persistent feelings of worthlessness, guilt, or emptiness. Now, here's a dramatic moment for reflection. Studies show that up to 20% of adults experience symptoms of burnout severe enough to affect their health, and depression affects nearly 280 million people worldwide. What's shocking is how often these conditions are misdiagnosed or ignored. Someone might leave a job thinking they're burnt out, only to discover months later that depression was at play, and now recovery is more complicated. Awareness is your first line of defense, and self-compassion is the bridge to healing. So how do you know which path you're on? There are some telltale signs. Burnout often comes with situational triggers. Your workload is unsustainable, your environment is toxic, or your daily responsibilities have become overwhelming. Rest, boundaries, and lifestyle adjustments can bring relief. Depression, in contrast, can persist regardless of circumstances. You might rest, take a vacation, or temporarily change your environment, and still feel the weight pressing down. Sleep patterns often change dramatically. Appetite shifts, and even physical symptoms like unexplained aches or digestive issues can appear. Here's where the storytelling of the mind gets fascinating. Imagine two people, each lying on their couch after a long week. One scrolls through their phone, mentally checking off tasks they've avoided. They're burnt out, and a week of rest, reflection, and supportive boundaries could help. The other stares at the ceiling, unable to summon even the thought of joy, wondering why life feels so gray. They may be experiencing depression, which often requires a multifaceted approach: therapy, social support, lifestyle adjustments, and sometimes medication. The distinction is subtle but critical. Let's layer in another piece of science. Neuroscience tells us that both burnout and depression affect the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, focus, and self-control. Chronic stress shrinks certain areas, impacting memory and emotional regulation. Depression can also alter the limbic system, deepening emotional numbness or reactivity. This is why taking symptoms seriously and differentiating between the two isn't just about labeling. It's about protecting your brain, your emotions, and your future self. And here's a compassionate insight. Whether you're experiencing burnout, depression, or a blend of both, the first step is acknowledging it without judgment. You're not weak. You're not failing. You're human. Burnout asks for boundaries, rest, and recalibration. Depression asks for understanding, support, and targeted intervention. The courage is in noticing what your mind and body are signaling, even when it's uncomfortable. You may wonder, can burnout turn into depression? Unfortunately, yes. Chronic, untreated burnout can precipitate depressive symptoms, especially if it's coupled with a lack of social support, unresolved stress, or underlying vulnerabilities. This is why early recognition matters. When you pay attention to your emotional patterns, honor your limits, and cultivate practices that regulate stress, like mindfulness, exercise, adequate sleep, and meaningful connection, you build resilience against both burnout and depression. Here's a practical reflection. Ask yourself, am I motivated by joy, even a little? Or does everything feel heavy and empty? This question, simple as it sounds, is a compass pointing towards self-awareness. Journaling, speaking with a trusted friend or professional, and gently observing your thought patterns can illuminate which path you're on. And finally, let's close with empowerment. Burnout and depression may feel like an inevitable trap, but they are signals, not sentences. You can respond. You can restore energy, reclaim joy, and reshape your brain through intentional practices. The journey may require professional guidance, rest, and lifestyle recalibration, but every step of self-awareness is a step toward healing. So, the next time you feel that creeping exhaustion, that numbing heaviness, or that endless cycle of low motivation, pause. Breathe. Notice. Ask yourself, is this burnout, is this depression, or a mixture of both? And then take one small, deliberate step toward care, because understanding is the first spark of resilience. If you've stayed with this story, you've already taken that first step. You've learned the subtle distinctions, seen the science behind your experiences, and embraced the possibility of change. Now, don't just stop here. Talk to someone, journal your thoughts, and explore strategies that nourish your brain and soul. Awareness isn't just knowledge. It's the beginning of transformation. And as you continue, remember, whether it's burnout, depression, or both, your mind is signaling for care. And listening is the most powerful act of self-respect you can give.